Hello, welcome to Dear Stream English. Today we're going to cover a great writer from the past named Fyodor Dostoevsky. So, Dostoevsky was a Russian novelist, short story writer, essayist, journalist, and philosopher. He was born November 11th, 1821, and he died February 9th, 1881. Okay, so his novels were focused on psychology. He was one of the first existentialists. Existentialists are a group of philosophers who take great concern with human existence and also human suffering. A little bit about Dostoevsky's life. A couple of random facts. He was addicted to gambling. Once he wrote a novel in 26 days because he needed to get a paycheck. He had epilepsy, which is a disease that causes people to have seizures. He was Christian. And he was an inspiration to other writers, including Hemingway, Kafka, and Nietzsche. Okay, his most notable works. In 1866, Crime and Punishment. 1880, The Brothers Karamazov. 1872, Demons. 1869, The Idiot. And 1864, Notes from Underground. These are all great novels. Another interesting fact from Hemingway's life is that he was once condemned to death. So he was arrested for being part of a literary group which advocated for social change. Since he went against the government, he was arrested and condemned to death. Before they killed him, though, the court changed their minds, and instead they sentenced him to 8 years hard labor. So his main book, Crime and Punishment. This is one of my favorite books. It's the story of a man named Raskolnikov who murders 2 people. He believed that the murders were justified in order to improve society. And Raskolnikov believed that some people were able to justify breaking the law because some people have superior intelligence and morals. Now, this raises a lot of serious questions in our minds, right? Dostoevsky is not saying that this is right. The whole point is that Raskolnikov feels this way and he experiences intense psychological suffering. That is his punishment. And we say this is your conscience. So the man who has a conscience suffers whilst acknowledging his sin. That is his punishment. Okay? So you do something wrong, your punishment comes from the inside. It doesn't really come from the outside. And it raises another question. Is intelligence enough? Raskolnikov seems to think that his ideas about society are superior and that his intelligence should shape the society. He says that if more reasonable ideas are applied, the society would be better. Does this make sense to you? Is reason something we can depend on? These are all questions raised in the book. Do you know anybody today who thinks that he or she has ideas about society that are superior than other people, and that if their ideas were implemented, society would be better? What do you think about these kind of people? Are they morally superior? Are they ideological? Another question that is raised here is the issue of reason versus passion. So, I think it's generally accepted that intelligence alone is not nearly enough when it comes to acting wisely. We all think there's a difference between wisdom and intelligence. Reason is the slave to passion. Our emotion often drives us to do something. Reason kind of follows behind. We use our reason to explain what we already have done because of our emotions. So Dostoevsky thinks that we cannot trust the superior person's intelligence fully because that person is also motivated by passion. The next book, Notes from Underground, was written in 1864, and it's often considered the first existentialist novel. Remember, we talked about existentialism as a philosophical movement. And existentialism means that individuals define the own meaning in their life, okay? They're engaged in something called meaning creation. This is apparently distinct from finding meaning in God, government, or authority. So it is the individual who must find the purpose of existence. Anybody who views themselves in this way could be described as an existentialist. Okay, the Notes from Underground is written in a style that's called a confession. Confession is that the main character of the story is talking to us. He is the narrator, telling us what happened to him or what he has done. And this book is the confession of a bitter, unhappy, unnamed narrator. It describes how he finds it impossible to be friendly with other people and how he is always miserable. Why is Notes from Underground important? Dostoevsky uses this book to present his perplexing philosophy. So you get the idea from Dostoevsky that he's using literature as a vehicle to write philosophy and present his view of the world. So we have to ask, why is the narrator in Notes from Underground depressed? Because he's worried about losing his freedom. Because he thinks the world is governed by deterministic laws and formulas, and he doesn't understand how he can still have freedom in this world. And the narrator desires suffering because it makes him feel more free. In the deterministic world, he doesn't feel like he has any freedom, but at least if he's suffering, he feels free. So you can see the sort of deep psychological themes here. And that's Dostoevsky's style. And this theme returns again in Notes from Underground, reason versus passion. Apparently, Dostoevsky loves to explore this theme. So if we live a life that is 100% rational, can we still have passion? Because passion is often irrational. And if we follow rationality, can we still be free? These are all questions that we don't really know the answer to, but they're interesting to think about. This is a great book as well. The last book that Dostoevsky wrote in his life, called The Brothers Karamazov. They are considered Oh, this is considered one of the best novels of all time. The plot revolves around three brothers and the murder of their father. So the theme is the genre is basically a murder mystery, but it's also deeply philosophical. And it's said to describe the entirety of Russian society at the time. There's some big questions that are raised in the brothers Karamazov. He asks basically all the big questions that philosophers wonder about. Do we have free will? Does God exist? Why do human beings have to suffer? What is human nature? Are there limits to human reason? Are there moral laws? How do we find happiness? These are all themes addressed in the book, in the beautiful story of this family. Okay, this is kind of a side point, but Dostoevsky's writing style is always focused on conversation. There will be very long conversations that go on, sometimes over several chapters. Why do you think he focuses so much on conversation? Are there any other writers who focus on conversation so much? I found this quote from a good website, shmoop.com. Characters speak at length about their hopes, fears, and passions. Reading the novel is like entering the most fascinating, juicy, absorbing conversation you have ever heard. I put this in here because I agree with it. When you read these conversations in Dostoevsky's books, it's very interesting, very fascinating. We all love listening to other people's conversations, right? So when we're reading it, we get that same fascinating feeling. Okay, let's look at some quotes from Dostoevsky to kind of get introduced to his writing style and some of his ideas. This one says, "We sometimes encounter people, even perfect strangers, who begin to interest us at first sight, somehow, suddenly, all at once, before a word has been spoken." Pain and suffering are always inevitable for a large intelligence and a deep heart. The really great men must, I think, have great sadness on earth. The best way to keep a prisoner from escaping is to make sure he never knows he's in prison. Man is fond of counting his troubles, but he does not count his joys. If he counted them up as he ought to, he would see that every lot has enough happiness provided for it. A man who lies to himself and believes his own lies becomes unable to recognize truth, either in himself or in anyone else. And he ends up losing respect for himself and for others. When he has no respect for anyone, he can no longer love. And in order to divert him, having no love in him, he yields to his impulses, indulges in the lowest forms of pleasure, and behaves in the end like an animal. And it all comes from lying to others and to yourself. Here's a little quiz. Right? Try to write the answers to these questions. Why not? Practice your English. What was Dostoevsky addicted to? What was his religion? What did Dostoevsky think about rationality? What was the brothers Karamazov about? What was Crime and Punishment about? Why does the narrator of Notes from Underground desire suffering? So pause the video and try to answer the questions. Okay, you can unpause the video now and hopefully you answered the questions. If you did, you are a very good student. And let's kick it up a notch. Are you interested in writing an essay? Here's some essay questions. First one, do you think humans have free will? You could write about that. Do you think that humanity can rely on reason? Or is emotion always too powerful? You know, if you're interested in improving your writing skills, these are two great topics that you could write about. Okay, if you have any questions about Dostoevsky, please leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening. Good luck studying.